Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the full moon in Virgo for twin flames. This full moon occurs on March 18th, 2022 at 3:17 a.m. If you happen to live on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. A couple of announcements before we begin. I wanted to just mention that I ran an experiment during a recent live event series called Shadow Work Week, where I left the comments open so that you guys could share and support with one another, share with the guest speakers, and it seemed to go pretty well. So I'm going to remain leaving the comments open at this time for you guys to enjoy giving and receiving mutual support to one another. All I ask is that you keep the comment space clear and supportive, respectful, and kind to one another. If I find that I'm just spending too much time deleting negativity, either your own self-defeat because you need a bucket to catch all of your pain, or that of your counterpart because you're just upset and you need a place to vent, this isn't the place to do it. Please seek out some professional support if you need community around that. The comment section is really the place to share some positivity and light with other people about your experiences and their experiences. If I find it's going in the other direction, I will close it up again, unfortunately. But that being said, speaking of Shadow Work Week, there were a lot of you who participated, and many of you who are new to me and meeting me for the first time. Welcome. It is awesome to have you here. I appreciate your participation. That Shadow Work Week content is going to remain up as long as I'm on YouTube. It is free to listen to, free to come back to. Don't feel like you have to rush it or binge it. Some of the content's pretty heavy and intense. So if you need to take breaks, please do so and listen as you have time. Speaking of shadows, I am going to be teaching a free live class tomorrow evening on Wednesday, March 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Greenwich Mean. I believe that's 4 o'clock Pacific, all about how to work with your wounded healer energy in your chart. That would be your Chiron placement. In the work that we're going to do during that live class, you're going to get the opportunity to learn how to find your Chiron, what to do with your Chiron once you found it, and how to make your Chiron a little less painful going forward and what it represents in your chart. So join me for that. All the details you need are going to be in the community section of this channel. But when I go live, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, you might want to do that so that you can participate live and ask questions live. I'm looking forward to that. And if you're catching this after Wednesday, no big deal. You can listen to the recording at any point that you want. Class is free, so feel free to join in. Interesting energies about this full moon in Virgo. I think this might be one of my favorite lunations of the year. I'm really loving how empowered this full moon in Virgo is. To get kind of the full picture, I highly recommend you have a listen to the Lightworker energy update. I'm going to gloss over, give you some high level details here in this video, and then we're going to dive into the planetary energies I see as the divine counterparts and what they're doing at this time. But if you really want a full explanation, and you're the kind of person like me who really wants to understand what's the work, what can I do to create positive outcomes here, that Lightworker energy update will be the one you want to listen to. So the work is there. Go for it and have a listen in that video, and feel free to come back to this. At this full moon in Virgo, it's taking place here at the 27th degree of Virgo, and with Sun standing opposite here in Pisces. We've got a conjunction to Neptune, we've got a trine to Pluto and to the North Node. This energy altogether is really about having the opportunity to take a positive step forward based on aligning faith with action. And if you can do that at this lunation, you're going to find that there are really positive outcomes available for you. There are a few tricky energies in here that I talk about in that Lightworker energy update, some shadow energies that can come forward. So if you notice at this lunation, you're struggling a little bit, or people are being a little weird, or you're getting some new behaviors and you're like, where is this coming from? The light worker energy update illuminates how to work with that. But the main shadow energy is just getting a little too caught up in fears and wanting to do a spiritual bypass on those instead of dealing with the situation at hand as it is and having the conversation around allowing your faith to move you forward in positive actions toward positive outcomes. So let's get into, where is it? Where do I have this note? Yes. Okay. We are doing a bit of solidifying. So I noticed the final eclipse in the Sag Gemini eclipse cycle was on December 3rd. The Sag Gemini eclipse cycle was very important for divine counterparts because the planet that I read as the divine masculine energy, which we all have, it's not just a person, but it's an energy that flows through all people, regardless of body. I read that energy as Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with the sign Sagittarius. That final eclipse in Sagittarius on December 3rd brought forward the completion of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. That beginning of the new cycle had a bit of a rocky start with the Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto in January and February and in December. We are now out of that cycle. We are solidifying these energies, this new ground that we've moved into. And there was a bit of a timeline split that I intuited in that November, December, January pathway for a lot of divine counterparts, whereby some of you, as this union window opened, may have moved into a union timeline with someone who is your divine counterpart or someone who is not your divine counterpart. Labels don't really matter. The quality of loving is what's most important. And if you moved into that union energy in the third dimension, you'll really start to see it taking shape now as we end the first quarter, because some of the dust has cleared, the smoke has settled from the tumult of the Venus retrograde. Now, others of you may not be moving into some sort of traditional third dimensional union with another person. You may be experiencing one of the 4 other types of union that I talked about in the Union Window special on my channel last year. So if you want to have a listen to that, you can have a listen to that. The other types of union, just as a quick recap: union with self, union with soul group, union with source, and union with your own mission. So where those kinds of things are unfolding for you at this point in time, you'll start to see life taking shape to bring you into that union energy for you at this point in time. Now, the energy that I read as the divine feminine, she's Juno. Okay. Juno here, you can't really see her. The way the software is rendering has her right on top of Pluto, and she's not anywhere near Pluto at this time. Thank the goodness. Thank the good Lord. Thank the stars. We have Juno really sitting actually in a conversation. She is square Uranus. And so that square has been active the last couple of lunations, and this can represent challenges moving in your preferred direction with some unexpected setbacks in our divine feminine energy. This is divine inspiration coming in through the challenges, a bit like a clarity to make things happen based on what's feeling stuck. It's a bit of a aha kind of energy moving through our divine feminine fields and sparking our creative life force. Divine feminine energy does really represent that creative life force energy, that capacity to ebb and flow and become what a circumstance needs and requires. Divine feminine energy has that openness to it to shapeshift and to receive. And so with the Uranian activation, the creativity energy is really sparked by things we didn't see. They pop out of nowhere and boom, we get an idea. Well, I can work with that this way. Okay, I can create based on this. It is said that sometimes the most creative people have come from the most limited or impoverished of circumstances. And that's because when we have little, we actually are forced to be ingenious and inventive about how to do a lot with the little that we have. And so this is that kind of energy, and it's coming through our divine feminine energetic templates where we are recognizing certain limitations based on where we're at, collective energy, maybe finance, and going, aha, this is what I can do with this energy as it's flowing through your divine feminine energy fields. Uh, there's an urge here a bit for dramatic and rapid change, and really a bit of a sense of restlessness for divine feminine energies as she's working this energy through her field. The square can make us feel not only restless, but a little bit frustrated potentially with some of the slow pace of change when we want to change with others in our world. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And so this is that kind of energy of really recognizing where, in order for us to move beyond where we're at, we do need to tap into collective energy fields. We do need to bring other people with us. We do need to assist other people with their learning and growth so that we can all elevate and expand together. So it's a positive energy. It can just be a little bit frustrating. She's sitting at 17 degrees Aquarius. We have a little bit of a trine to her here from Lilith. It's loose, it is not precise, but the Lilithian energy does bring into the conversation a little bit of our abandonment wounds. It brings into the conversation a little bit of our need to see things go our own way. And from Gemini, unfortunately, that can lend itself to a bit of manipulative energy, calculating mental energy, where instead of just being honest and transparent about that, here's what I need, here's the way I want to work it, there can be just, unfortunately, a little bit of strong arming other people, wanting to talk it to death to convince them of the way, seeing it our way. I would avoid that if that's possible. Like I said, in the Lightworker energy update, I did provide a full, thorough explanation of how to work with this energy in the light. So I recommend you have a listen to that and just avoid kind of trying to strong arm other people through endless dialogue and conversation to see it our way. That would be important here. That would be more of a shadow use of divine feminine energy. But in the light, because it is a trine, there is an opportunity for more of the positive side of Lilith and Juno to come forward. When you have Lilith and Juno coming together, that's a feminine force to be reckoned with. That is a feminine force of like supremely, divinely inspired good for the collective energies. And we can see during this time across social media, across the internet, there's a lot of divine feminine energies that are stepping into light work and leadership through air signs, voice, and communication. And so where you are feeling called to bring forward that divine feminine energy, you're divinely inspired to share what's been given to you to share, I strongly recommend you step forward and do it. The collective is really waiting for these messages to come through divine counterparts at this time. And in your divine feminine energy, where you're called to blog, vlog, write, do articles, create emails, do a podcast, where you are called to create videos, any type of content that's going to elevate consciousness in a way that brings people into greater, how can I put this? Greater cohesion rather than greater separation. This is the opportunity that this Lilith and Juno energy brings to the forefront as it flows through divine feminine energetic templates. And so where if you've got a song that you want to write or something that really inspires cohesion, inspires us looking out for one another in the collective, this is the time to share it for sure. This full moon in Virgo might poke you. Now's the time. If you got to do a couple of late nights, do it, get it done, get it out there. Your voice is definitely needed. We have another energy here speaking to her. She's over there at 17 degrees Aquarius. There is a little bit loose but it's there nonetheless. A little bit of a sextile from Chiron. This sextiling energy from Chiron really brings forward this like recognition of what it's going to take to transcend, integrate, and or heal certain wounds that you may have had to your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value. When I look at this for divine feminine energies and I see Juno speaking with Chiron, this really speaks to me about the journey of the having been tapped on the shoulder by love and really being in love's classroom as a divine counterpart. When you've become a student of love and love has really brought you into its educational chamber, so to speak, it is a chamber of higher learning when it comes to what love is, what it isn't, how it behaves, how it doesn't, how it speaks, what it holds back, what it's open to, and what it lets go of. Chiron having this conversation with Juno via the sextile is providing a level of illumination in our divine feminine energy fields about the things we've had to let go of in order to let love live. There might have been certain ego-based attachments. That's Aries and shadow, all ego, all day. Ego-based attachments that through the collective mirroring, that's where divine feminine sits inside of Aquarius. There's some ego-based attachments that through collective mirroring, we recognize, you know what? I now get it. Those are things that the collective told me I ought to want or ought to be, but these are not things that are true for me. And so at this period of time, as you're moving with this energy, there's a bit of an opportunity to shed a lot of the wounds that we have because we bought into collective thought forms about what love is and what relationships should be. It's a little bit like shedding the kind of Hollywood or Disney World kind of promises about love and moving into a more mature agape type of love that says, you know what? I was told that this is what love was supposed to be, but in my process of really becoming a student of love as a divine counterpart, I now recognize this is what love actually is. And this is an opportunity for divine feminine energies to step into leadership in love and really show people this is what love does when it's afraid. This is what love does when it's deeply connected. This is how love responds to wounds. This is what love does when it is recognizing the fragility of humanity. And so that opportunity is certainly there to move into that leadership. And like I said, I'm hosting a course tomorrow for free here on YouTube. You want to get into it, we can get into it. You can also listen to the recording if for some reason you're not available. All right, so that's the energy there for the divine feminine counterpart. Let's talk about the divine masculine counterpart. Let me just clear that up. For the divine masculine energy fields, we've got this Jupiterian energy. It is hanging out pretty close to Neptune and pretty close to Mercury, and that is influential. So I read Juno as the divine feminine because in the mythology, she actually technically was Jupiter's wife. I don't know why we've erased her for so long, but if you're new to my channel, you'll see I talk about Juno as the divine feminine. I talk about Jupiter as the divine masculine, as her husband. So the two of them are divine counterparts. Let's have a look at what Jupiter is doing. We've got Jupiter almost in opposition to this moon. It's loose, but it's there. And we've got Jupiter more than halfway through this Pisces season energy. Normally, when Jupiter moves through a sign, we've got Jupiter hanging out with that sign for the entirety of 12 months. Jupiter's moving double time. This has to do with some of the positioning in the sky and the angles it's making to Earth. I won't get into the science of it here, but we have Jupiter only in Pisces for 5 to 6 months before it heads off into Aries, meaning We've got our divine masculine energies learning the same amount of lessons in half the amount of time. So if this year has been stressful, if it has been intense, if this year has been a challenge so far, this is in part why. The Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto added and amplified a lot of the tension in December, January, and February to the mix in our divine masculine energy fields. And now we have Jupiter more than halfway through into Pisces before it hits Aries at the tail end of May, beginning of June. And what we have going on as Jupiter moves through Pisces is this beautiful energy of faith exalted, deepened intuition. While Juno sits in the sign of the collective consciousness, that's Aquarius, it's almost like internet type energy. You can kind of claircognizantly Google in your brain and know things. Jupiter sits in the sign of the collective subconscious, and that's Pisces. The Piscean energy is that which is hidden from the collective consciousness energies, that which you might have to do some deep diving for to surface the pearls. It's the energy of swimming through the collective almost mood that we're all carrying. And with our divine masculine energy tapped into collective subconscious, divine feminine tapped into collective consciousness, the divine counterparts are broadcasting loud signals right now. So it is so important to stay as positive as you can. Despite the energies we're all seeing in collective energy, we have the opportunity as radio frequencies to not just receive a lot of what's happening in the collective, but to broadcast where we know the collective needs to go and grow in the name of love. And so where you can heighten that vibration of love, heighten that vibration of acceptance, heighten that vibration of, surrender, which Pisces is all about in your divine masculine energy field, going with the flow. Where you're able to do that, you're going to find it amplifies that for the world. Remember, divine counterparts, once you've been activated by love in the way that you have, your frequency is a much stronger radio signal than people who have not had that activation of love, which is an activation of cohesion of heart, mind, body, and soul. Once you've got that, your signal can be so loud to other people, especially as the divine counterparts are moving through the sign of collective consciousness and subconscious. This is why it's so important to really, as you're receiving so much information from the collective energetic templates, to do your work. Keep your eyes on your own test, deal with your own triggers, face your own wounds. And as Jupiter is moving through Pisces, this gives us an opportunity to do that, to really have the opportunity to close up certain cycles. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac before Jupiter pops into Aries. Got the opportunity to close up certain cycles before we open a whole new 12-year cycle as Jupiter moves into Aries in the later part of in the later part of May going into June. Jupiter opposite Moon, though loose, can really provide a deeper sense of vulnerability with ourselves about what we want, what we need. It can provide a deepened sense of vulnerability and transparency with ourselves about what's working and what's not out there. Full moon in Virgo. And so it's important at this time to pay attention to the messages that come to us from the depths, especially when you're working with water. Jupiter is in water sign Pisces, meaning when you're in the shower, when you're washing the dishes, if you're watering your garden. These are moments, these moments when you can kind of just check out, go into like a lucid state or a bit of like a theta brainwave state. These are moments where you're going to find a lot of inspiration shows up for you, a lot of clarity about your circumstance and what's going on. Trust your intuition at this time. There's a lot of responsiveness between the divine counterparts with Jupiter moving through Pisces because all of our divine masculine energy is in hyper responsive sign Pisces. And so because our energy is so clearly broadcasting, so clearly connected, so deeply entrenched in the ethers, there's a lot of truth that can come forward in this energy if we're willing to just listen. Okay. The conjunction with Neptune is opening up a very psychic, very creative, very compassionate part of ourselves as we experience the world. And it can also open up a lot of faith. Our internal protector and empathizer is getting turned up with Jupiter in Pisces, and with Mercury joining the conversation, it is making conscious that which has been unseen. It is making known that which has been unknown. It is illuminating that which has been hidden or hard to grasp. This Mercury conversation in the shadow, it's also adding a little bit of kind of maybe a little bit of that spiritual bypass energy I was referencing. It's adding a little bit of the over optimism here. Oh, it'll all be fine. But what's important to remember is that in order to, especially for this lunation, which is very earth based, for it to be fine, we need to do things to get it there, not just think about it and wish on it. We need to act on it. So, as we're working this energy in our divine masculine energy fields, you may have a lot of intuitive insights that just flow into you, ways in which you find intuitively you're just connected to things and you don't know why. There's information that flows through. Trust it, trust your intuition. This full moon in Virgo is going to powerfully turn up the volume on intuition in our divine masculine energy fields, giving us insight and information about where we can bring our masculine energy of providing and protecting, our masculine energy of really wanting to procreate and co-create with the divine through our divine act of divinely activated fields and love. So if you want to have a look at how this might be playing out for you and your counterpart, whether you came into union, separated, moving on into union with somebody else, experiencing one of the other 4 types of union, the way to do that with me is to book over at K Moon Astro. I've got a couple sessions left for the end of March. I would love to work with you. This is a really opportune time to have a conversation before we get into the second set of energies for 2022. We had one set of energies that was really governed by that end Sag Gemini eclipse cycle from December and the Venus retrograde in January, February alongside that. We're now moving into the second set of energies for the year. And so if you're curious about how these energies might play out in your connection, the way to do that is for us to do a private session where we can look at your chart, your counterpart's chart, and have a conversation about how to use the energies masterfully. I'm so grateful that you're here with me. If you heard something that resonates, please subscribe. And I would love to see you tomorrow on the workshop that I'm doing about Chiron, called Transcend the Wound and Become the Healer. Thanks so much for liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing. Take great care, and bye for now.